What's going on, guys? It's Bromley from Empire Barbell, and today I want to talk about my favorite subject, which is overhead pressing. Now, overhead pressing is my favorite lift for a few reasons. One is because it is extraordinarily useful and also underused by just about everybody. As a strongman competitor, we prioritize it. You know, the way powerlifters bench press, that's how we overhead press. We take it seriously, we do a lot of variations, and what happens is over a period of time, not only do our contest lifts improve, but we get stronger all around aesthetically. You know, the shoulders fill out, the triceps fill out, a lot of upper back strength is required. um, in addition to that, it carries over to a lot of other things. You know, everybody in strongman at least knows the wisdom that you can bench press till the cows come home. It's not going to make you a better overhead presser, but as your overhead climbs up, you can pretty much guarantee your bench is going to climb up. So it's a lot more useful as a training tool for that reason. It's also my favorite lift because I'm really damn good at it. I'm built for it. You know, I have short arms, so the way that you may have heard me at some point talk a little bit of crap about some of the gifted deadlifters, right? The knuckle draggers, the guys with really long arms that lock the bar out on their kneecaps. You know, you might have to pull the bar, 2 or 3 feet, and you got the world record holders that move the bar about 6 inches, and it all counts the same. And I take it with a grain of salt because I have the exact same thing going for me in an overhead press. I have short arms, specifically a short upper arm, and you're going to see in the video I'm going to post how my build is really advantaged. My elbows snap to lock out very easily. It's something I started out kind of advantage for, and then I played into that strength, and I got really good really fast. I was beating pros in overhead pressing when I was 20, 21, and that was before I was really strong. None of my lifts were that good. I had no tricep to speak of. I mean, it didn't even look like I should be lifting those weights, and a lot of it has to do with leverages, so there's no denying that. Now, I don't feel that bad about it because I compete in a sport that is 90% bending over and picking things up. And to that extent, short arms is absolutely not an asset. So whatever gifts I have in overhead pressing, which is usually one event out of five, trust me when I say that I am very disadvantaged in a lot of other ways. But that's what makes the sport fun. What makes you really good at one event might make another event your kryptonite. But to talk about today, just overhead pressing in general. So I'm going to show you a clip of a really big PR that I hit that I'm very happy with. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I was doing it, kind of how I programmed for it, and then how I treat overhead pressing in general. So in strongman, there are no rules. Well, there's very few rules. It's like the Wild West. You have to just get the weight overhead, have it locked out under control. You get a down command. However you get it overhead from the floor does not matter. There's no rule. It's very rare. A Viking press occasionally, they'll force you to push press, but usually you can do a split jerk. You can snatch it if you want. You can do whatever you want to get the weight overhead. So the two big techniques you see that I would consider technical competitive techniques are either a push jerk or a push press. For those of you that don't know, a jerk is when you dip back under the bar. There's a big misconception with strongman terminology because the terms get kind of blurred and used interchangeably sometimes. A jerk implies that you jump up into the weight, and then as the weight's going up, you physically drop your body back down underneath. So the momentum of your legs is the big driving force, and the timing of dropping your body back under the bar is the driving force to getting the weight up. And with a push jerk means your feet stay together, whereas a split jerk, that's what Olympic lifters typically do, where your feet split apart. So it makes it easier to drop farther under the weight. But there's a trade-off. It's more explosive, which requires more energy, so it's not as good for reps. It's harder to pull off with implements like dumbbells, kegs, whatever. So you have to be a little strategic. And then again, there's your build. If you've been Olympic lifting for 15 years, split jerk might be the way to go for you. For those of you that haven't, it might be the long way around. You might be better off dealing with a push press. Now, a push press is just where you jump into the weight, so you're constantly increasing distance. So think of it as a cheating military press. You start by jumping with your legs, your knees straighten out, and then you push into the weight. The main difference being that relies a lot more on upper body strength and lockout power than it does timing and speed from the lower body. So I was a really good push jerker. Not that I'm very athletic or fast, but just because I again, short arms. I had a good front squat. I always do a lot of squatting. So I had really good leg drive into the bar, and I didn't have to dip that far to drop back under the weight. So I was very stable, very quick, and I got good very fast. I was what, 21, I think, and I push jerked 365 for a double out of the rack. Um, and that was, I mean, I maybe had a 250 military press at the time. So that gives you insight as to where my development was with that. Then I decided to switch gears and focus on push pressing. For about 10 years, I prioritized push pressing. I was a lot worse at it, and that's why I struggled on odd events. It was the best thing I ever did. Flash forward to 8 or 10 years, and my push press caught up to my push jerk. But that meant I had more stability and better performance on pretty much all overhead movements in strongman. So that was a good move on my part. Now, the thing is with a push jerk is it's technical, or any jerk. If you don't use it, you lose it. So now I'm in the process of rediscovering. Now that physically I'm stronger, my upper body's stronger, my press is stronger. So now I'm trying to rediscover that push jerk, which is a little foreign. I'm a little tighter, moving quickly under those loads in that fashion. It takes a little bit of practice. And they both have their place. Some of the best overhead guys, they have a good jerk. They're strong and they've incorporated the technique. That's always going to give the best result, no matter what. So, there's a guy, Jesse Nelson, strong as balls. He walks around at 235. He has a 405 standing strict press. The problem with Jesse is that if he uses his legs, he's actually worse because he's not used to the timing. It's not something he's drilled. So, realistically, he can strict press 80 pounds more than I can. I still beat him in an overhead press at contest. There's nothing against him. He's insanely strong. God, what I would give for that static strength. But if you don't take into account technique and you don't spend time refining technique, you're not going to develop on a high level. Don't think of it as like I know some of you guys might think of it as like it's smoke and mirrors, or you're cheating somehow. It's like, if you want to bring your A game, if you want to win, all right, stop trying to rationalize worst performances. If you want to win, you have to be strong and you have to be technical. That's it. And as technique goes up, you handle more weights. As you handle more weights, you get stronger. There's no way around it. So a lot of time and attention has to be. I mean, Jesse Nelson could probably build up to a 500-pound push press in a very short period of time if he drilled it. I don't know that he will. I don't know that he needs to, honestly, because even without it, he could still win most overhead events on a pro level. But it's just an example. So anyways, trying to rediscover my push jerk, what I did, knowing that it's an explosive movement, it's a technical movement, and I'm not very flexible, and I'm not quite as snappy these days as I used to be. I knew I needed a lot of reps, a lot of practice, and that all comes from sub-maximal volume. That's a biggie. Sub-maximal meaning I'm not exerting myself to a 8 or 9 effort out of 10. A lot of it's 5, 6, 7 efforts out of 10. Things where the weight's heavy enough to keep me honest, light enough that I can make technical adjustments as I go. So what I like to do is kind of work up a pyramid, but I'll keep the reps similar. I was actually inspired a lot by Chico with this, and it worked very well this cycle, where if you look at his rep schemes, it's a lot of, you'll do a few sets at low reps on, let's say sets of 3 at 70%, then 75%, then sets of 2 at 80%. You might get up to 85% for sets of 2, and then you'll work back down. And the thing is that none of those are especially difficult sets. It's the amount of work, it's the amount of volume that starts to creep up that makes it difficult. But all of those sets allow you to refine technique while you're fresh, so you don't end up falling apart. And then what I'll do is I'll steadily improve the weight week to week while trying to strive for more sets and more touches at these heavier weights. So it's kind of volumized. Volume's increasing as the weeks go on. So it's a double whammy. The weights are getting heavier and the number of sets and reps I'm doing is increasing. But I'll keep it relatively low. I'll keep it in a 2, 3, 4 rep range, even though they're not 90% attempts. It's 70 to 80, maybe 85%. And I ran that for about 4 weeks. And every week I got more comfortable. I got more efficient. Every week the weight felt better. Another one. God, when I was doing all these push presses, I got so tight that the bar would float up by my chin. So as I tried to kind of dial back in, I got comfortable bringing the bar down so I could actually get it to rack around my collarbone, because one, it's easier on your bicep tendon because the bar doesn't, trampoline as you go to bounce into it. But it's a much more efficient leg drive. You get way more leg drive into the bar, and that was a big game changer for me too. Just getting flexible enough so I could really just get my elbows up nice and high and have that bar racking right against my collarbone. So especially for a jerk, that was huge. So I took the time to loosen up. I took the time to run that set and rep scheme. Nothing was to failure. Nothing was. I mean, fatigue was even minimal. It was just anywhere from 6 to 12 working sets. Going up sets at 3, 70, 75, 80, maybe 85. Do a couple sets, then work back down. 8 to 10 sets total each week. Just add a little bit of weight. Keep it in that 2 to 4 rep range. And so week 4 came around, and I started to feel a little more comfortable. And then I took this video. This is a big PR. It's 350 for 6 in a jerk. So what you're seeing here is me popping into the bar, and then it's subtle. I'm not as flexible as I'd like to be. I was practicing getting under the bar more on my warm-up sets, but you're seeing me dip just a little bit. If you watch my knees, you see how my knees rebend. And that, it's just a couple inches, which is it's a very shallow push jerk, but it's enough to differentiate it from a true push press that it gives me a lot more speed. I can lock out a lot quicker, so I can press more explosively, and I can serve a bit of energy. When I push press, it's much slower. It's much more, it's an even tension. I jump explosively, I push as hard as I can. The weight gets heavy, it slows down quite a bit. So because I'm snapping a lockout so quick, I save a lot of energy actually. So I can do a lot more weight, a lot more reps. And this is a technical abomination. It's kind of always how I've push jerked, but taking this video, it gives me hope as easy as the weight moved. But it gave me some obvious insights and things I have to fix. So what you'll notice are a couple things. Thing one is my lockout looks shitty. Part of that is anatomical issues. My elbows have a hard time locking out. That's not to say it's not fixable. It's from tight bicep tendons, but it's also from bad habits. So I'll address how to fix that in a minute. So my lockout isn't stable. I have a hard time getting my head through. Again, shoulders are tight, puts a lot of stress on my neck. I feel very unstable. So I'm actually a little more comfortable if I keep the weight out in front very, very slightly, which it's not good, especially in a jerk. That's not a stable position. So that's something I have to work on. Getting under the bar, if I can reinforce that lockout position and get comfortable with that bar, elbows completely locked, head forward, get stable in that position, I'll be able to commit much more thoroughly, not just to the lift, but to getting under it, to sticking it. And I'll save more energy. I'll be able to use a lot more weight than I'm currently able to use. And that's just going to be from being proactive. So one of the things we're going to do to fix that lockout is elbow stretches. My biceps are tight. I actually got this tip from a former Westside bencher. It's a guy's all-time record holder in his weight class. He has one of the best multiply lockouts I've ever seen. It's not those shitty soft lockouts you see guys do in their 1,000-pound benches and a triple ply shirt. And he says he would literally just lay on a bench, put his arm down, and then with his other arm, just push and try to armbar himself and hold it for time. And you feel a ton of tension in your elbow. It doesn't feel good, but over time, it loosens your elbow up and it allows more fluid joint mobility. So that's something I'm going to start doing. On top of that, shoulder stretches. My shoulders are very tight, very bound, which makes getting my head through, I feel a lot of crowding around my neck and my delts. Long stretches, for that type of mobility, you want 2-minute long, 3-minute long stretches. For your shoulders, put a bar behind you, grab a bar, lean forward, and just set a timer. It's going to suck. But if you do that a couple times a week, you'll be amazed at how much more flexible you are. I've been more flexible in the past. I've just laid off of it recently. So, pec stretches too. My pecs are horrendously tight. I take a 10-pound, 15-pound dumbbell, lay back on a bench, and just open up. I try to keep my elbow high so it doesn't come down, and I just let that dumbbell pull my knuckles to the ground, and I hold it again for 1, 2, 3 minutes, as long as I can stand. Instantly improves my ability to get my shoulders active and get my head through. So those are all on the docket. On top of that are overhead supports, which I'm going to show you right now. Overhead supports can serve I'm sure there's multiple purposes. There's two big ones that I think of. Uh, for me, it's going to be getting comfortable by building time under tension in that position. I'm emphasizing lockout, so I'm trying to find a position where my elbows are as close to being locked out as they can, and not just passively holding it, because that's when they go soft, but pushing as hard as I can the entire time. And when I hold these, it's not like I don't feel it like I feel a normal set. When I'm doing these holds and I'm fighting to keep it locked out, I feel my shoulder blades, my lats, I feel my all the muscles around my scapula start to get lit up. My shoulders start to cramp up from flexing so hard to try and hold that position. But mechanically, it is just such a stronger position. I have to get used to it. I also feel with the bar back where it should be, back over my head, that it is much more unstable for me, and it should not be. It should be rock solid, but I'm not used to it. So I feel myself, kind of like an earthquake, moving back and forth, trying to stabilize this bar position. So as I improve that, again, I'll be able to stick the barbell. I'll be able to drop under it fat. It'll even improve my push press. Because when you have a definitive lockout, a definitive point B that you're going to when you start at point A, that's how you make a fluid, efficient movement. If point B is sketchy, if you don't really know you'll see new lifters on their lockouts when they like deadlift. They don't really know how to get their hips forward. And even if they blow the weight off the ground, it gets really ugly into the lockout. You can't have an efficient movement if you don't know where you're going. It's like having a race and not knowing where the finish line is. So by solidifying this lockout position, by getting more flexible, more mobile, and doing these supports, I'm gonna give myself this hard finish line where I know where I'm going and I can attack it. And I'm gonna save a lot more energy. There's gonna be a lot less instability, and that should equate to more pounds moved, more reps, however you like. The other thing besides that, the overhead supports, the second thing is when you get good at them, you can handle a fuck ton of weight overhead. So for overloading your CNS, getting a feel for heavier weights, the way somebody might do an above the knee rack pull or an isometric, or back in the day, guys used to do heavy walkouts and squats to get used to heavier weights. So it could have the same effect. For that reason, I might actually try throwing it in before I jerk to get a little PAP action, post-activation potentiation. Just a fancy word for when you subject yourself to a heavier load. Lighter loads move better. They move faster, they seem lighter, but physiologically, this is studied. Any one of you can do it. Take something that you know to be a set of 8 or a set of 10, warm up to 20% more than that for 1 or 2 reps, or 15% more than that for 1 or 2 reps. Wait a couple minutes, drop back, do that rep set again. Invariably, you get a couple of extra reps. That's just the way it is. It primes your nerve. I don't know, bro science. Primes your nervous system. I don't know. It's some action on your nervous system that allows you to kind of like liberate more force production. It allows you to utilize more of what you have. You move quicker. It has athletic applications. Moving heavy loads. I've talked to some athletic coaches that'll do things like heavy glute bridges before broad jumps or whatever to try and improve speed. So definitely it's valuable. That's why I love reverse pyramids. Go heavy first, go light after. The lighter sets go better. You build speed that way. Anyways, so the overhead support's a good way to get underweight. I mean, I've done an overhead support with 500 pounds, and that was like 10 years ago. I wasn't as strong as I am now, but my lockout has degraded quite a bit. So as I get back into it, hopefully I can fix that lockout and get comfortable under those loads again, because that's the lifetime goal. 500-pound overhead, 500-pound push press specifically, but 500-pound overhead press anyway is definitely on the bucket list. So let's leave you with this. For those of you strongman competitors, hopefully some of this was helpful for you. We'll give you some insight into how I built my press up quicker than most. Anything I didn't cover, leave questions in the comments. For those of you that aren't strongmen, you should be doing this shit anyways. Getting your shoulders stronger makes fucking everything stronger. Overhead press. I don't care how you overhead press. Just get your shoulders into it. Push pressing, I live and die by. I mean, it's a great competitive movement, but it's a great developmental tool. It's full body. It teaches speed, athleticism, coordination. You have to stabilize. In addition to that, you handle more weights than you would if you just did a strict press. The shoulders grow. They just respond to it. So, you power lifters and you aesthetic guys, do not slack. Standing presses out of the rack, man. There's nothing better. So once again, this is Bromley from Empire Barbell. Leave your questions if you got them. I'll see you next time.